For me, the thing that I always look for, or the thing that I think about when choosing my next project, is about the impact that it'll have on somebody. I believe that what we do as artists, as actors, is a contact sport. So, whatever story that you tell, whatever message that you want to spread, ultimately, you hope that it lands on somebody.
Hey, it's Kristen, and today we are chatting with the cast of Disney Plus's Just Beyond, a new horror anthology from the mind of R.L. Stine based off the graphic novels of the same name. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Check it out. I love a horror anthology, and I'm a big R.L. Stine fan. Did you guys grow up reading or watching R.L. Stine?
He was a major part of my love for horror. He was my first introduction into the genre of horror, and then he was also a fundamental part of like me learning how to read, because I learned a lot of his books in elementary school. So yeah, he was a major part of my childhood.
I was definitely a fan of him and his work. I grew up reading his books and watching his the TV shows and stuff like that. So getting to do this, it was really fun.
I definitely grew up reading his books. That was my favorite shelf at the library at school. I loved the Babysitter series, and I was so excited when I found out that he was attached to this project.
For me, it'd be like Goosebumps and Chucky, those two all-time favorites, especially the most recent movie. I think it was a couple of years ago, but I absolutely love that. It was so entertaining and fun.
I watched the first like Goosebumps movie that came out like 3 or 4 years ago. I think it's the one Megan's talking about. But yeah, that movie kind of got me more into it. And then, I mean, I'm a lot older than the target audience now, but after reading the script, I read a lot of the first Goosebumps and Just Beyond, and kind of regretted not growing up on it.
Megan, your character really learns that fear can be a real monster, so how do you deal with your own fears and insecurities, and were you able to bring anything like that into your role?
I was able to bring in a lot of my own securities about like making new friends and moving to a new place. I think that's always like super scary, and especially like when your parents are divorcing, you don't have that you don't have both parents being able to be there at the same time and supporting you at the exact same time. So I think that's something that's really difficult, and I was able to use my own insecurities and nervousness, probably just from like being on set with them and new people and new friends and new castmates. It's always hard. Hopefully kids can learn that it's not all hard, life's hard. However, there's always, you got to find the confidence and the strength to be able to push past it and be able to have that strength inside of you and just make friends using it.
Jai, your episode tackles prejudice through the lens of witchcraft and also like learning to accept yourself. Have you ever had to deal with anything like that, and how did you bring that into your role?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. Well, I'm first generation American, so I can't directly relate to the immigrant experience, but my grandparents can, and my own parents can. So growing up with those stories, I think I related in a lot of ways. I also grew up as like the only Jewish person at my school. So I think having that as my heritage, it definitely made me feel like an outsider at times. But it was also really exciting to be able to share part of my own culture and religion with my classmates. So I guess I brought a bit of that to Luna, who's just so bold and energetic and confident about who she is. And I loved the spin on the Salem witch trials and how in this universe they turned out a little bit differently. I am personally, that is one of my favorite periods in history to explore because it was just so insane what happened. I've been to Salem a couple of times, and I love how immersive this witch culture is in the city, even though, hate to break it to everyone, witches don't actually exist. So bringing all that history and excitement into the role, I think definitely helps me flesh out the character.
That's awesome. And, I love that you guys took so much inspiration from just the stereotypes you hear about witches, the witch mark, the witch wart, and different things like that. And, brought that to life in kind of a different way, embracing those things. Lexi, you spent a lot of time on screen with a bunch of ghosts. So how did you guys film that?
We actually filmed it like you would film any other scene. The ghosts, they just had to come in way earlier than I did, and they got their face and their body painted before we would film, and so they were like this bluish, grayish type of color. But I was actually talking to them and the crew, the special effects team. Like, shout out to the whole post-production department because they absolutely killed it with special effects.
For Gabriel, your episode, you really dive into the differences between parents and kids and how sometimes parents are just like a little weird. Did that influence how you connected with your own family?
I think I'm a little past that phase in my life, where I think, you know, I'm pretty much done going through puberty, and I think I'm a little more accepting of my parents now than I was a few years ago. But I think it definitely reminded me of that. And like I had a few kind of funny conversations with my parents about like that phase in my life when I felt like my parents were super foreign and like weird. So I think it wasn't like, it didn't really affect my view on it, but it definitely kind of brought that back.
Totally. Just remembering like, oh yeah, I remember when I thought that was embarrassing. I guess it's not so embarrassing anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I used to get embarrassed because my mom like would want to hug me all the time. And now I'm like grateful.
And now Lexi, I mean, you just came off of like a huge project with Little Fires Everywhere. So what was it like going from, you know, something like that to, you know, an anthology that's a little bit more like, you know, kind of solo one storyline? You know, what kind of made this the right decision to jump into next?
It was really cool. Both projects are similar yet different at the same time. For me, the thing that I always look for, or the thing that I think about when choosing my next project, is about the impact that it'll have on somebody. I believe that what we do as artists, as actors, is a contact sport. So whatever story that you tell, whatever message that you want to spread, ultimately you hope that it lands on somebody. And so for me, it's just deliberate about what message I want to land on somebody. And so for Little Fires Everywhere, we were talking about so many important issues that are so timely, even though it was set in the 90s. It's so timely to what kids are going through now. It's the same with Just Beyond. Even though it was written in 2001, it's still incredibly timely to what kids are going through in 2021 now. So that's kind of like the similarity, or just kind of the process behind choosing my roles and choose what project to jump into next.
Did you know that you and Megan were going to be doing the same show? Was that kind of funny?
Yeah, I found out like after I was done filming. So I texted her as soon as I found out, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Did you guys have like a favorite moment from working on your episode?
I would say my favorite moment was probably meeting Henry Thomas and getting to work with him, because like he's super iconic to me. Like I've watched his audition tape for ET probably 17 times or something. So I think that was like a really cool moment. And also just like meeting all of the cast in general, and the whole shoot was super fun.
For me, it was probably my cheer scene where I got to be a flyer again, because I used to cheer for a really long time, for like 6 years, and then I had to quit. But it's probably one of the surreal moments because I miss it like so much, and I watch like thousands of videos on it, like at least a month. And so it was really fun to be able to do that again and kind of experience that exhilaration to do that again. Yeah. It's tons of fun.
It was just such a cool story. I've never really dabbled too much into the horror sci-fi world, and so just kind of getting to see like the behind the scenes aspect of the special effects and like what went into like creating the demon, you know, the demon skull that chases us, or just like the little stuff like that. Yeah, like learning about what goes on behind the scenes was probably like a highlight of what would happen when we weren't filming.
One of my favorite moments, there's so many, but one of my favorites was we were shooting a scene in the classroom, and at the end of the scene, the director was giving us so much artistic freedom to kind of improv and riff with each other. And just anytime we had the freedom to do that was so much fun because it was spontaneous and we were reacting in the moment off of each other. And there were, I think that was the best chance to kind of flex my my feet in its character's shoes. Like I got to really be her in those moments unscripted, and it was a lot of fun.
You guys are obviously dealing with a lot of like supernatural elements, but you also kind of dig a little bit deeper as well in your stories. And I was wondering what you kind of hope people take away from your episodes.
Every episode has something that's special and unique about it. And what I love so much about this story, this show in particular, in general, is just the fact that every episode has a hidden message. message that helps kids relate to or kind of deal with whatever they're going through in their everyday life. For Ella, which is the character that I play, she's struggling with the loss of a friend. She's struggling with change. But what I love about this episode and what I love about her story is that it teaches kids the importance of the healing process, and that you should never let your circumstances define you, and the importance of accepting your fate, forgiving people, healing, and moving on, no matter how tough or how painful it may seem in that moment. Ultimately, that's the biggest sacrifice, and able for us to live in the present moment and not be stuck or so attached to our past.
If you like this one, you can check out more of my interviews right over here, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!